Biden's State of the Union address.
Tonight is a pivotal night for the president as he prepares to deliver what could be the most important speech of his presidency.
We are still 8 months out from the general election, but with that rematch now set between former President Trump, tonight might be the president's
I know I'm ready to hear what the president has to say.
Out there.
Members of Congress
hopefully, he'll clear up some things for everybody.
Expected to address the most
I need to turn my other light on.
the country is facing, including immigration, the economy, and of course, 2 wars raging overseas.
Wow, 52 people in here. You guys are amazing. Let's watch this together. And I got you guys in the chat box too. Crowd chants, Ryan. Thank you for keeping it real. Hey, I appreciate that, Mike.
Even though they're not going to have a voice in this
Told you on Threads that I'd be here. You did, Amy.
Among them, you see a sea of white, and this is
Dude, the cat's mom. I like that. I love your name. So hey, I'm trying to make sure I got all the levels right. Can you guys hear? Do I need to turn the volume of the actual video up?
Yellow and blue to show their ongoing support of Ukraine, and of course,
some people stay quiet.
For that supplemental aid.
Yeah, I think we all know who
we're also noticing
who might be the issue
Republicans
tonight.
In the crowd today, many of them wearing white ribbons. This is
hey Jay, what's going on?
Demonstrating their concerns.
Thanks everybody for joining in.
We
got 116 people with us tonight, so that's awesome.
Some also displaying pins.
I'm glad.
Lake and Riley, of course.
I'm glad there's so many of us that want to hear what the president has to say right now.
Undocumented immigrant. You know, Lester and Savannah, it's important to point out that tonight the president is entering what is really one of the most partisan House chambers in a generation.
And you know that that's new for me.
Just a few votes separating Republicans and Democrats. Those slim margins make it really difficult for Congress to get anything of substance accomplished. And because that partisanship is at an all-time high, there is, of course, the possibility of the president being heckled by members of his opposing party. And although the new speaker, Mike Johnson, who it's important to point out, he'll be sitting behind.
So what do you think the president's going to say? Or okay, better question for you guys.
He has instructed his
what do you want to hear the
abide by
president
House
address?
rules, and he's
That's a
told
better
them
question for you
to
guys.
display what he calls decorum. The other thing we'll be looking for tonight, Lester and Savannah, is that there's going to be several guests in the gallery who represent various causes. They have been invited by members of Congress or the White House. Among them, the families of the American hostages that are still being held captive in Gaza, and of course caught up in that conflict between Hamas and Israel. And of
looks
course,
like they might be getting ready to announce them
to be a key focus tonight. We do know that the president will address this situation. But as we talk about protesters, there's also that possibility that an individual member, maybe of the president's own party, or perhaps one of their guests, attempts to stage some sort of a protest to put pressure on President Biden.
We don't need any protests tonight.
An end to the war and, of course, the humanitarian crisis that is playing out there in the Middle East. And then
I want to see Dark Brandon show up tonight.
All of this comes against the
I think if they try to heckle him or say some stuff, he's not going to let it slide. I don't think he'll let it slide.
This has been an investigation that's been going on for months. The president's son recently
what is it?
testifying in front of the impeachment inquiry
the block of the border
now,
bill?
The White House has
I got you.
This all as
blocking
a
the border bill? Yeah,
Even some House Republicans have, of course, said that this is failed.
I have a feeling he's going to say that too. Like,
but it's something to keep in
time
the back
for us
of
to
your
get
mind
off
as the president
pot
addresses this group here tonight, that there are many of these members who believe that he should be impeached, even though at this point they've yet to demonstrate the evidence that would rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors. So we do expect the president in this chamber very shortly. At this point, members are just
announcing here any second.
Having conversations with each other, catching up.
We got 239, 248 people watching. So I'd love to know where y'all are watching from. I'm watching the chat, comment sections.
And there were already members lining up to get those key coveted seats along the aisle.
Why is he there?
Walk in so that they can get that.
Why is George Santos allowed in that freaking building?
Seen by millions of Americans. It's of course one of the most coveted seats in
politics,
and we're going to see that on full display here when the president.
George Santos should not be allowed in that building.
Yeah, Savannah noting quite a contrast in the number of people and the people we're seeing in there, including George Santos,
an expelled member of Congress who still, as a former member of Congress not convicted of a crime, has a right to be there on the House floor and has decided to come tonight. no invitation necessary. So he's just one of the many storylines that we see developing on the floor tonight.
I don't have
the
that kind of
timing all this
confidence
coming
to
2 days after Super
to
Tuesday,
do that.
a prime moment. The president
Wow, we
has
got
to
Canada.
get his message out there to respond.
I know
to
a lot of
the
people up in
darker
Canada
view of
that are
America
paying attention.
that Republicans
Wisconsin.
have been offering. We want to bring in our chief
Nice.
White House correspondent, Peter
We
Alexander.
got Northeast
Peter,
Texas.
what can we expect from the
Gadsden.
president?
Lester, in effect, this is the starting gun on the
Yeah, I know he
2024
hasn't been
campaign,
convicted yet,
as
but
a
still,
senior aide to
like,
the president described.
you've been run out of
To
the place.
me,
You know what I'm
I think
saying?
there's a
Like,
couple things to keep an eye on.
I
This
don't
is a
know.
night that's filled with both
It's just me.
challenges and opportunities. The challenge here, of course, the president facing low approval ratings. Many Americans have questions, real
we
concerns
got Mike
about
in
his
Wisconsin,
age,
so we
his
got two
physical
Wisconsin folks
and
here.
mental health right now. But it's an opportunity because the president has accomplished in the eyes of the White House a lot since coming to office, and that's why they're going to try to frame this
Ronnie
as a comeback
seems lit
story
already.
of sorts. You'll remember January 2021, more Americans died due to COVID.
I must have
that
missed it.
month
I was
the
why I
president
was
came to
looking at the
office than
comments.
any other month during the course of the pandemic. More than
Oh my God, sit down. You
105,000
embarrass
Americans,
Arizona,
and yet
woman.
the economy has been growing in
Retire.
the time since. The president will tout the strong job growth. He'll tout the fact that inflation, though still high, is now 2/3 of what it was at its peak. And while a lot of the focus
Like,
for many Americans, given concerns about the
I don't know,
president's
like, I'm not
age,
trying
will
to be like
on his
misogynist or anything, but
delivery, the White House's primary focus tonight is on what the
Judge.
president has delivered for the American people. I'm told by a
Judge
senior
Jackson
aide
is
as I
a
walked out to the
good-looking
North Lawn
woman.
to speak with you this evening that the president, right out of the gates, is going to focus specifically on the topic
New
of
Orleans?
democracy, not just around the world,
New
including in
Orleans?
places like Ukraine,
What
but here at
platform?
home with the threat that's posed
What
by the
platform are
potential for
people on?
another
We got a
Trump
lot of
presidency.
ex
The
people
topic of
commenting.
reproductive rights, as Ryan noted a moment ago, is going to
Yeah, I don't know. We got
key
324
with,
people in here, so I'm not sure exactly
a
which
key
platforms they're
individual
on.
in the First Lady's box this evening being
It
someone
seems like we
whose
got a lot
family
of.
benefited from IVF. Another one, an individual.
Yeah, that's the
there
only thing I
who
don't
was
like
someone who
about this
sued
is
the
if you
state
guys
of
are watching
Texas
on
for its,
YouTube and all the
near
comments are
total
coming from
abortion ban. And finally,
like
of
Twitter
course,
or
is the
X,
issue
I can see
of
them all,
the
but you
economy
can't. I don't. That's
as
the only
well.
thing
The
I like
president
about
will
this.
sharply contrast his vision,
Daisy is
his time in
embarrassing
office
enough
to
as it
that
is.
of his predecessor, though he may not.
Yeah, we
refer to
definitely
him
have our
his
issues.
name.
But-
and on that topic,
but
the president's going to say, "My lifetime."
Can we
is
just talk
time
real
to
quick
embrace
about
freedom and
how
democracy,
awesome
to give hate no safe
mayor,
harbor.
our
Now,
governor
some
is?
other people my age see a
Erasing
different story,
medical
an
debt,
American story of resentment, revenge,
sending
and
sending
retribution.
down
That
some
is not
reinforcements
me.
to the
Just
border,
one
try to get
example of
it
the
under
contrast the
control, at
president
least in our
is
state.
expected to make tonight from
I
experts
just
who receive
like
the
I
short
feel like
topic
Democrats
Lester
aren't
today.
talking about her
All right,
enough.
Peter,
She's
thank you.
doing
And to set the scene,
she's
there
doing
we
some
see
good
former
work.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi, members of Congress mixing and mingling with members of the cabinet, Supreme Court
see no
justices
small
that have assembled
talk
there. We see the
between
second gentleman entering right now. We await the State
Kamala
of the Union,
and
one of the
Moscow
storied
Moses,
traditions
like,
of our
Moscow
democracy.
Moses.
The president
Yeah, I mean,
addressing the nation in just a few moments. He's left the
Yeah,
White
you
House,
didn't know
and we
that?
expect him
I'm in
to
Tucson.
enter that chamber at any moment. By tradition, he will be announced, and then he'll enter. We'll have applause. We'll have a moment to keep
Yeah, Wombat
chatting.
said the same
and for
thing.
that, we turn for the moment
No
to
small
our
talk between
moderator of
those
Meet the
two.
Press, Kristen Welker.
You know, you say a lot of
Giving
things
shout out there
about
to
Kamala,
Vice
but
President Harris, his wife. So
she's
when
not
you talk
fake.
about a State of the Union, it's so
Like, if she
often
doesn't
in
like
past
you,
years about policy.
she
It
you're gonna
certainly
know
will
it.
be tonight.
Like she'll
President
tell
Biden
you
needs
to,
lay out
you know,
what he would
she'll
do
tell you
with
to
the
kick
second
rocks
term,
with a smile on her
but
face,
it
but
is also about performance tonight. There are
you know, like
persistent
she definitely knows
questions
how to play the
about his
politics,
age.
but she's
It
not
shows
fake,
up
I
in
don't
poll
think.
after poll. It is no secret. How he performs tonight is as key as
So I'm going to ask
anything
again now that
he
we got
says
almost
from
400
that
people in here.
podium.
What's something you want to see? What's the topic you want to hear President Biden address tonight? What's the one thing? I honestly want to hear him address the border more, not because I think it's as big of an issue as you know, Elon Musk and everybody make it out to be, but because I want him to shut that talking point down as best as possible.
He turned it on their head. Can he show
First Lady.
the type of fight? Here comes the First Lady entering.
Looking
the
beautiful.
chamber. If we want to pause for a moment.
Very pretty brooch she has on there. Jeez.
And Savannah, I think that is what people will be looking for tonight. Does he show the same fight? And
Phoenix
does it
over
feel
here, you are
authentic?
correct. We do
know
have a
that
good
the White
governor.
House has been preparing
Yeah, and
for some change in Republicans, even though the House Speaker has encouraged his
AG
conference
Mays
not
is doing
to
a pretty
do
darn
that,
good
but
job, too.
undoubtedly that is something we might see.
Okay, I'll
Pause
shut
for
up.
a moment as the president is about to be introduced.
Mr. Speaker, the President's Cabinet.
Yeah, I agree, Wombat.
And Hallie, as we can continue our discussions, we wait for the president. There's also the question, will the president go on the defense about some of the issues, immigration, the economy, or take the alternate view and a positive, affirmative case for his policies?
Well,
Can't we
I
do
think I'll
both?
see both, but on the issue of immigration, I can tell you based on conversations that I've had with sources close to the Biden campaign, he will look to flip the script on immigration. He is going to look to do what he's been trying to do with a smaller audience. Obviously, he's got tens of millions of eyeballs on him tonight to try to point out, hey, wait a second, you could have passed a comprehensive bipartisan border security bill, and Congress did not. I would not be surprised to hear the president talk about that tonight in a full-throated way. I also spoke with a member of Republican leadership who's in the room tonight, who suggested that may not be the most effective line of attack for the president. Republicans have been going after him on the humanitarian crisis at the border for months now. This is one of the central arguments against him. We've seen something really interesting happen. For the last however many years, we sit here, we talk about how the economy, people's money is what drives
the economy, inflation, the border.
This year now, one of the first times we are seeing in some
our
polls
funding
overtake that as
of
the
Israel and wars abroad.
I will tell you, I was texting with a Democratic member of Congress who's now in the room. I asked how this person was feeling. They said, I'm excited, but honestly a little bit anxious.
I would love for him to completely ignore Trump altogether, but I'm not sure if he, I'll understand if he doesn't, but it would be really cool if he just was like, I'm not even going to talk about him.
This weekend,
don't even give him the spotlight tonight.
He's been going over it with a fine-tooth
It's about the
comb,
country.
really looking at every single word. He knows how important this is.
He knows the stakes of this moment.
Hey, Damien, what's going on?
The case against Donald
Yeah, we're all
Trump
good over
in
here.
recent weeks. Tonight is his night.
Yeah, I'm looking
to
forward
make
to
the
this
case
too.
for Joe Biden, to counter the
no matter what
critics
side
who
you're on,
say
I think a
he
lot of
doesn't
us
have
just
it
are
in
ready
him
to hear
to
what
serve another 4 years. I also think that there is
where we are,
a political challenge
where the president
here.
thinks we are, and
He's got to energize the base tonight. He's
what
gotta
direction
do
we're
that.
going
But he
going
also
in.
has to reach across the aisle to those Nikki Haley.
Yeah, he's going to have to address
independent
Israel.
Voters,
If he doesn't speak about
those
Israel
are the types
tonight,
of
that
voters who
will.
could make a big difference in some of
They'll be
these
talking about that all day
Right.
tomorrow.
When Donald Trump appeared to reject those voters, said, I'll take them. They're welcome in my campaign.
That's right. And remember
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Donald Trump has
Just don't
said.
mention him.
He's basically said,
Not
I
about
don't
him
need
tonight.
Those voters. So those voters are for the taking.
Although on Tuesday night in a statement, he did say,
As
if
we
you want
mentioned
to
him.
join my movement, you may, but he was not moving in their direction. He said, feel free to move in my direction. But it raises, the political question you raise is really interesting. Because, Hallie, do you perceive this election about turning out your base? And is the enthusiasm on the left against Trump more than it's for Biden? And does that create an opportunity for Biden then
You
to
think
move to the
he
center?
will?
If wants
He will
to
ignore
try to
him, or
capture
he'll mention
those
him?
independents, the suburban moms, the tried and true
There's a
swing
side of me that
voters
thinks
who
he almost
decide
has to
so many
mention him,
elections.
but
To make the bet that the
hope he makes it
progressives to
short.
his left are not going to find Donald Trump
Yeah,
more
it doesn't
powerful
need to
than
be
Joe
horribly
Biden.
wrong, I don't
However
think.
concerned they are about some of the issues that they have, like his handling of the Israel-Hamas war, absolutely. Because listen, this is going to have to be both, right? If the answer is both, it's a turnout election.
thought that was
you gotta turn out your base, but the
Bezos.
margins are so close here that you also have to appeal to those suburban moms in those
You think he
swing
has to
swing
mention it?
battleground states.
Yeah.
And that's going to be critical.
Like I said, I can see
for
that too.
President
Like,
Biden or for former President
it's kind of hard to
Donald Trump
ignore him
By
too,
the
with the,
way, he's
especially
watching,
where we
and
are
now that we are
going into the
hitting
election and
general
everything.
election full swing this week, 240 days to go now until November. He is going to be, he says, quote unquote, fact checking or at least responding to some of the things that the president's saying. But Kristen, we just said this on Tuesday night. I'm going to say it again, Hallie. It's a rematch of 2020. Now we know it's not a replay. Things are different 4 years later.
Things are very different. First of all, former President Trump is facing 4 different indictments. His first criminal trial
4
gets
indictments.
underway later this month.
4.
So that is a massive difference. In the primary, it has emboldened him. It's energized him. It's allowed him to galvanize Republican voters around him. How will it play in the general election? Here's why it's also different. During the last election cycle, candidate Biden was never trailing former President Trump.
Make Trump
Very
Putin
different
invisible
situation.
tonight?
This time around, polls show he's
Yeah, I don't
trailing him
know.
in general
I think
election
he's gotta
polls,
mention
as well
Putin,
as
too.
in key battleground state polls. And that's what, based on my conversations with the president's allies, really has them
Gets
concerned.
back to the idea of losing the narrative.
Meaning the cat is in.
In this case, President Biden, a lot of the supporters think that he's been slow to respond to some of these things.
That's right. They say that he hasn't shown enough urgency. And in fact, I was speaking to some of
I
his
think I'm
closest
gonna try
allies
to
today. who
turn on
said,
another
"Tonight's
light
when
here
we're
real
going
quick.
to
Hang on,
see
guys.
That urgency.
You'll still be able to hear
Everything
everything.
starts tonight. And they say this is when people really start paying attention. We'll have to see if that's the case.
Well, and voters want to see that he has a pep in his step. Let's turn to Christine Roman. She's our senior business correspondent. And Hallie does mention now that immigration is right up there. It's been
it's the economy, stupid, has been the political cliche since the 90s. Well, now it's the economy and it's immigration. But the economy is such an interesting picture because, as you well know, and I know you have these numbers memorized, so many of the metrics show an improving economy, and yet people don't say they feel it. And it comes down to inflation, and specifically the grocery store.
Absolutely. The state of the American economy is strong.
And you know what I want to remind everybody too, while we're listening to that, is that
psyche is skeptical
high
or
fuel
exhausted,
prices,
depending on who you're
high
talking to, exhausted by,
grocery prices,
the
everything. It
3 years
affects
of
all of
higher
us.
Inflation. Inflation is moderating. You'll hear the president
Doesn't matter
say
what
today.
side of the aisle you're
He
on.
won't say it's mission accomplished, but prices are higher
Here we
than
go.
they were 3 years ago.
There he is.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Let's go, sir. That's a fair question. What I wonder is if you'll be all about the election or the actual facts of time. That definitely shouldn't be about his reelection, all about his reelection. It should. He's got so much he can highlight, though, too. Like, there's no reason for it to be all about that. You know, just tell the truth on this stuff. It'll carry him. These commentators are pathetic. I mean, they got to try to, you know, at the same time, they got to try to stay. I don't have to stay in the middle. I can be partisan. I'm voting for Biden. I'm voting for Hunter's dad. And again, guys, everybody watching, if the sound goes up, like I can't. It all sounds good on my end, so if something goes off, you know, please put it in the comments so I can fix it. I want everybody to be able to hear what the president's saying.
I'm so struck by it because
not just me.
More than anywhere in Washington, the halls of Congress are where Joe Biden feels.
But you know, while we're waiting for him to get up there, I hope everybody's doing well.
And also,
you know, the state, no matter what, we all view the State of the Union being, this all affects, it affects all of us. I hope more of us remember that going forward, and especially November 5th, that this really isn't a partisan thing. It affects all Americans. And at some point, we really need to stop playing games. Trump 2020? What is this? Are you serious? Is that Marjorie Taylor Greene down there dressed like a freaking clown? Please tell me that's her dressed like a clown. It is. It is. Marjorie Taylor Greene dressed like a clown. That's right. Cut her out. Cut her out. Look at her. Look at her. Say her name. Who? Please say it says Ashley Babbitt. Oh no, it's like, see, and I love this. Do you see how quick they are to actually try to protect people when it benefits their agenda? Like, one immigrant kills one woman and they're just like, oh my God, we got to pass all these, Lake and Riley, we got to pass all these laws. But when 19 American kids that are 10th grade, or they're 10 years old, 12 years old, die, they don't act, they don't do anything. So seeing her dressed like a clown like that, that's hilarious. Hilarious.
She said, say her name, Laken Riley. Laken Riley is that nursing student who was killed at the campus of the University of Georgia not long ago. And it has become a flashpoint for many Republicans, with the suspect in that case, a migrant who crossed into this country. And Republicans have gone so far, some of them, as to suggest that President Biden has blood on his hands in her death. Her parents were invited, chose not to come.
Well, a lot of the members of Congress, the Republican members of Congress, are wearing either pins or ribbons, or in some cases, a picture of that young woman who was tragically killed. And we just saw Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm glad, Hallie, that your lip reading or your skills are in fine form, or you have better hearing than I did, because I couldn't make that out myself. But so we see the president enter. I mean, talk about relishing the moment. You know, the exit last year, was 20 minutes long, which in past years it's 5, 6, 7 minutes. But this is somebody who wants to greet every person,
Thanks,
who
Bob.
wants to do
Appreciate
retail
that.
politicking with these members.
Yeah,
of
that was
Congress.
definitely Marge.
In some
Got a
cases,
good look at
Kristen,
her.
these members
He's
of
wearing a
Congress
shirt,
will come in
Trump
the
hat,
afternoon.
holding buttons
Unless you're a
up.
member of leadership, there's no designated
Holy
seating,
crap.
so you got to save
I mean, we
your
already
seat.
know how
And members
unclassy
of
she
Congress will
is
do it
from
to snap
telling a
selfie or in
reporter
case
to
perhaps of
F
Marjorie
off the
Taylor
other
Greene
day.
to have that
So,
moment. Here's Joe Manchin.
Here's Joe Manchin, who's, of course, announced he's not running for re-election. Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Democrats very concerned.
yeah, no, Wombat, I agree.
for the
Marjorie
very
Taylor Greene has
strong likelihood
no
that they
clue,
will
no
lose
class, no
that
decorum.
seat. But look, I go back to what we were saying, that Joe Biden has spent a lot of time.
Are we
in
not
these
all
chambers.
voting
One of
for
his
Hunter?
closest aides was asked, is he nervous for a moment this big? The answer from this aide was no.
Thanks for the
He
audio
wasn't
check.
nervous.
Appreciate that.
This is where he is most comfortable. In terms of the
Yeah,
top officials
zero
we've
class.
seen within his administration, I was struck by Secretary Antony Blinken, who has spent
It was such an
weeks,
embarrassment,
months
sadly, Hunter,
overseas
for
trying
mudslinging
to secure
politics
a
in
deal
Congress. Yeah,
to
absolutely.
get hostages released in the Middle East in Israel's war against Hamas. They have not been able to reach that deal. That looms large over this.
There may be some policy announcements this very night on that issue, because this is obviously a huge international issue. It's a political issue for President Biden, as well as many young voters, many voters on the progressive left are dismayed at the president's wholehearted support for Israel. We heard the Vice President Kamala Harris with very strong words asking for a ceasefire.
Be interesting to see if he matches those words or goes farther.
That's right.
Yeah, my
And
dog's
this is one of the most
just like having
complicated
kids.
policy issues that this administration and this president faces. We anticipate that he's going to announce a new ramped-up military effort to get aid into Gaza, and so that is
Don't shake their hands.
This has divided the Democratic
Don't
Party,
shake his hand.
with young voters signaling that they disapprove.
We hear a chant. I want to go to Ryan Nobles, who's in the chamber. Ryan, are you hearing 4 more years? How are your powers of hearing and lip reading?
Hopefully I can hear a little bit better in the actual room, Savannah. But yes, it did appear as the president made his way down past the actual seating of the members. He's now, of course, making his way to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, just greeted members of the Supreme Court. But just as he got down to kind of the final stage before he heads up to the lectern, the Democratic members were chanting 4 more years and clapping loudly for the president. You know, it's interesting. It's really kind of stark to see him in a room like this, where he is so great one-on-one. That is what President Biden is known for. Where perhaps sometimes
Really? I didn't
in a
know
big
that.
speech he's known for verbal
I actually didn't know
gaps
that,
or
Amy.
other issues.
So Amy
When
said,
he's having a
I just cursed my
conversation
head
with
off when
someone,
NBC
he
didn't
often
even
makes that person feel
blaze
like
by
they're
the
most
fact
important
that
person
the
in the room.
murderer
And even in a
migrant
venue like this,
was
where he
allowed
has
to stay
cameras
under the
staring at
order
him, millions
TFG
of people
sign
watching all
just
over the
before leaving
world,
office.
he takes a moment
I need to go look
with each
into
and
that.
every person that he sees as he makes his way down
That
the
wouldn't
aisle,
surprise me at
and
all,
has
by the
that
way.
moment with them.
Like, zero.
In some cases, it's like he's seeing a friend he hasn't seen in a long time with a big hug, and it looks as though he's sharing some sort of moment with him. And just to get back to that moment with Marjorie Taylor Greene coming down the aisle, you know, we could see her
It's taking
don
him
her
forever to
hat,
get to the podium, isn't it?
Clearly looking to have a viral moment. She also had her camera phone pointed at the president the entire time. So I'm sure that's something that she's going to attempt to make a big deal of on conservative media. It didn't seem to bother the president at all. It couldn't tell from our vantage point whether or not he engaged with her or just kind of walked by as she was trying to get her message to him. So this is, I would imagine, somewhat of a frustration for the planners of this event here tonight. I don't know if they back-timed enough or worked up enough time for Joe Biden to greet all these folks. I think there's a level of frustration for him.
I could be a
that he doesn't
commentator
have the
for
opportunity
NBC.
to have
I
these
say it before they do.
conversations as frequently as he did when he was a member of the Senate.
Well, he is taking.
All right, here we go, guys.
We'll be hearing from the president in a moment.
Rip it up, Mike Johnson. Rip it up.
We watched him a moment ago pass by members.
Dump
of the
water
Supreme
all over it.
Court, and it made me wonder,
Kidding,
at least, how many
kidding.
times will this court potentially touch issues related to this race?
Absolutely. We await their decision on whether former President Trump deserves immunity in the January 6th trial, Lester.
Tony.
That's fair. At least Moscow Mike had the decency to applaud. Yeah, just look for the bling on her jacket. You can't miss it. It's like a lighthouse.
Good evening. Good evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now.
There's some truth there. There's a little truth there.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans, in January 1941, Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, "I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not.
Amen to that.
But Ukraine...
Oh, you don't want to clap at that, Mike?
Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin.
Oh, Moscow Mike doesn't want to clap at that.
And provide the weapons.
Yeah, just look down and nod your head. Yeah, he's coming out the gate strong, isn't he?
That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall."
Okay.
Now.
Oh, you'll clap at that, though, huh? Because it's a Reagan quote.
Now my predecessor,
sorry, I don't like
former
him.
Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that.
So much for not mentioning Trump.
I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
What do you guys think so far?
America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. Come here, stand up. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, I think so, too.
And they know how to fight. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down.
He's clapping underneath the table.
In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood.
Joe's going hard, man. I'm not messing around.
Stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
Did you see his face? Did you see that little prick's face? So, won't clap for overtaking Russia, but wants to shake his head at, ooh, man.
As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you without regard to party to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office is defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect.
Yeah, he's talking about
free
you.
Fair elections, restore trust in our institutions, and make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place.
I mean, that should be bipartisan, right?
Again.
Nah, look at them all.
It's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child, but the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to AVF. Guarantee it nationwide.
Don't look over and nod your head.
Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom, and so much more. Thank you. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that.
Did you see how those two women, though, how this is bringing people together? Did you see them reach for each other's hands? They were probably strangers before today.
Clearly. Those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024.
Got that right. Despite those fools.
If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Folks, America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses? Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives, of loved ones, millions left behind? A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news, but in 1,000 cities and towns, the American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told.
Here come the hecklers.
So let's tell the story here. Tell it here and now. America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot, and we leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does. Folks, my inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record. A record. Unemployment at 50-year lows.
Get him, Joe.
A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, and we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up. Inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world, and tending lower.
Oh, why are you shaking your head, Mike? Do facts?
The landing
You don't like
is and
facts?
will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, We're exporting American products and creating American jobs right here in America, where they belong.
I can't wait to see the memes of Mike Johnson's face all over social media. It's going to be beautiful.
And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers. Creating good-paying American
Unlike
jobs.
every Trump product.
And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it.
Get him, Joe. Get him.
I'm with you.
Get him, Joe.
If any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernizing our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage.
Dude, he is.
Providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in a family farm, because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. The great comeback story is Belvedere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office, and we raised the Belvedere repeatedly with auto companies, knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, and new state-of-the-art battery factories being built to power those cars there at the same.
What do you guys think so far?
Folks,
Got almost 1,000 people in here.
the folks at Belvedere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs of the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvedere right here in America.
Hey, James, just real quick. So you want to blame the yellow freight horrible business and how they ran that business? You want to blame that on Biden and Democrats?
The UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up.
Yeah, he gets a smug look.
And Dawn Sean Sims, a third-generation worker, UAW worker at Belvedere. Sean, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
He's biting his lip. His cheeks are all red. Mike Johnson's cheeks are all red because he knows he should be standing and supporting it, but he's not because he can't. Because they'll vote his butt out next week.
I say to the American people, when America gets knocked down, we get back up.
Amen.
We keep going. That's America. That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger.
The look on his, he's such a smug prick. Like, I just want to go, oh.
Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibilities that we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over, and the wealthy and the biggest corporations no longer get all the tax breaks. And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table.
Oh!
That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor go way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it. With a law that I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it. We finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make, they only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. And I want to, but what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone.
What's going to drive conservatives nuts is they're not going to have a bunch to go to clip and make them look bad.
For years, people have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money. It's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market to treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade.
And see, Republicans do not care. They don't care about the little guy. They don't care about us.
And they'll still be extremely profitable. Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion. Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year, even for expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. Now, I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone. Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get in Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act, the old Obamacare, it's still a very big deal.
Hey, that's going to drive nuts.
Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. Well, my predecessor and many in this chamber want to take this prescription drug away by repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before, and we'll stop you again. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. We enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent.
God, his faces are like...
To state the obvious, women are more than half our population, but research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, led by Jill, doing an incredible job as First Lady.
Maria Shriver, huh? Okay.
We'll pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research and benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. Just for 2 years. And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence. For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents. We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide. Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down. To remain the strongest economy in the world, we need to have the best education system in the world. And I, like I suspect all of you, want to give every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year,
the Republicans don't stand when it comes to actually helping kids.
That children coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often, start school, kindergarten, or first grade, having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is.
Which is good for the economy, but they won't clap.
I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry, I think, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them, and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said, I think you're right. I want to expand high-quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade.
How can they not? Why not clap for that? All the pro-lifers, they don't want to actually help kids.
I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to a good-paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure the college is more affordable. Let's continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, including Hispanic institutions. And I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans. I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so they can go to college. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college. And folks, look, such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise. And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share. Look, I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make $1 million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. A fair tax code is how we invest things to make this country great. Healthcare, education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%, the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair? Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet. In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half. Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country.
Oh, we can't clap for that, Mike Johnson?
Is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%. So every big corporation finally begins to pay their fair share. I also want to end tax breaks for big pharma, big oil, private jets, massive executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million.
Look, Mike Johnson's faces.
They can pay him $20 million if they want, but deduct $1 million. End it now. You know, there are 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what the average federal tax is for those billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse.
Can't stand for that either.
I propose a minimum tax for billionaires of 25%, just 25%. You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do for America. Imagine a future with affordable child care. Millions of families can get what they need to go to work to help grow the economy. Imagine a future with paid leave, because no one should have to choose between working and taking care of their sick family member. Imagine a future of home care and elder care, and people living with disabilities so they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally get the pay they deserve. Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors. Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise your retirement age, I will stop you. The working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share. Look, too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less. That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to health care to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this. I really mean it. You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. And you get charged the same amount, and you got about, I don't know, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees. Those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8.
Yep, they won't stand for
Banks
that
and
either.
Credit card companies are allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's more a hell of a lot, like $8 and 30 some dollars. They don't like it. The credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families $20 billion a year with all the junk fees I'm eliminating. Folks at home, that's why the banks are so mad. It's $20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration has proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total price up front so there are no surprises.
Oh, we can't stand for that?
It matters.
No, we can't stand for that.
In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers.
Sorry, I got a family emergency here. I gotta go, guys.
6 months instead of
really
6
sorry.
years now.
Yeah, I know I got 1,000 of you guys in here. I'm watching on NBC News, so that's what it's on. If you have to go change it, find it somewhere else. All right, guys. Sorry.
100 more high-tech drug